So when it comes to inheriting money, things can get a little tricky. Mom and dad may have left you some IRAs, some 401ks, maybe some CDs and brokerage accounts. And whether you've done a good job saving for yourself or not, how does this play into your planning? There are some really smart ways to spend an inheritance, and I want to jump into the top tips when it comes to inheriting wealth. Here we go. Good day, everybody. Chris Herline here of REAP Financial, host of Wealth Radio on News Radio KLBJ and host of Retire Ready TV every Wednesday on News Channel 36. That's KXAN here in Austin. Today, I'm talking to you about smart ways to spend an inheritance. There are some do's and don'ts, and I want you to stick with me today because while receiving an inheritance can be a blessing, it's very important to manage it wisely. Be a good steward with these funds. So let's dive in. When inheriting money, okay, whether it's just you or maybe some siblings, things can get complicated. Depending on how your family set up their estate, sometimes these inherited funds, these dollars can come to you very easily. In some cases, well, they can get tied up in probate. You may be the executor, you may be the trustee of your parents' estate or whoever you're inheriting from. It can be taxing. It can be a lot of work. You may have a trustee that was already assigned to your parents' estate. Maybe they're distributing the funds. But either way, this can be a sensitive time. And so making smart financial decisions during this time is very important. And one of the first things that comes to mind is assessing your financial situation. Do not make knee-jerk decisions. Don't go out and make emotional spending. Don't make emotional financial decisions. Assess your financial situation as a whole. Look at maybe current debts that you hold. Maybe you have a mortgage. Maybe you're in your 50s and 60s considering retiring yourself. Debts, mortgages, these are the type of things that we generally want to see paid off walking into retirement. So maybe consider utilizing some of these funds to pay off some of those larger outflows that we'd like to see go away, because when you retire, you want to try to decrease or reduce your budget to the base, to the minimum. And oftentimes the mortgage is the most expensive thing that's, costing you on a monthly. You also want to establish emergency savings. When you're in retirement or soon to be, you want to make sure you have a nice stockpile of dollars that can be accessed anytime you need them, whether it's travel, whether it's an emergency. We want a nice nest egg of cash. And in today's environment, cash isn't as painful as it used to be, right? A couple of years ago, you couldn't make any money on your cash. Today, you're seeing money market rates 3-4%. And so the money's not dead money, but make sure you position yourself with an emergency savings. Also, what does your retirement portfolio look like? You may have a lot of money in your IRAs, 401ks, maybe not. How are you inheriting this money from mom and dad? If it's an IRA, if it's a 401k, that's likely going to be inherited by you as what's called a beneficiary IRA. And there's some laws that come with this. Under today's law, you are forced to have that money taken out of that inherited IRA within 10 years of inheriting it. And that's true of a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA. Having a plan on the best way to take that money out is critical. You want to work with a fiduciary financial advisor that can run many scenarios for you, because remember, if you inherit IRA money, it comes out 100% taxable. So if you were to take it all and distribute it to yourself in 1 year, you may set yourself up for a tax bomb, pay a lot more in taxes than you need. In many cases, it may make sense to just stretch it out over that 10-year period, take it in equal distributions. Or if it's a Roth, that strategy can be completely flipped upside down, as the Roth dollars grow forever tax-free, but still must be distributed. So having a plan on how to distribute, this money is really important. Now, I want to get back to the debt service. In today's interest rate environment, the days of cheap mortgages, 2 and 3%, they're no longer. And a lot of people now have high interest rate credit cards. They have high interest mortgages. When I say high interest, it could be 6, 7, 8%. And you may have a car payment that's still facing, 6, 7, 8% interest rate. Prioritize the highest interest debt first. When you're looking at utilizing cash, it may make sense to pay down the higher stuff first and slowly move down. Okay, we get a lot of questions around managing debt prior to walking into retirement. And if you will, leave your questions in the comments. And if you're interested in learning more, visit our website at reapfinancial.com. That's REAP financial.com. Now, let's talk about investing this money. Depending on how old you are, maybe if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, you likely still have years left in your working career, and you want to maybe look at a long-term investment approach and longer-term options, things like stocks, bonds, exchange-traded funds. You may look or want to build a real estate portfolio. You may look at multi-year guarantee annuities or CDs, depending on your risk tolerance, but diversify amongst many assets to spread out the risk. And you may be inheriting cash from mom and dad. You may be inheriting their mutual funds. Keep in mind, in many cases, upon inheriting, unless it's tied up in a trust or dictated by the trustee, many cases you don't have to hold the same funds that maybe your 70, 80, 90-year-old parents were holding. You may want to diversify those funds into something else that makes a little more sense for your situation. And I get it. In some cases, there's some nostalgia knowing that mom and dad held their dividend stocks for 20, 30 years. We see oftentimes, well, I don't want to sell them, right? But you want to take into account when you inherit money, if it's not in an IRA or 401k, you may be getting a step up in cost basis, and that may be a deciding factor for the sale of those assets. If you hold the assets, you don't sell them, you may be facing more tax down the road. So again, working with a fiduciary advisor can make a lot of sense. When you inherit money, understand the potential taxes on the inheritance. A lot of people think I'm not going to pay any tax. Remember, if it's cash at the bank, chances are you won't pay much tax. But if it's IRAs, if it's 401ks, you'll likely be paying tax when you distribute that money. And there's ways to minimize your tax liability. Maybe you're gifting charitably. Maybe you're doing charitable donations. There are things that you can do throughout the year when you take distributions from your inheritance to not have such a large tax liability. Also keep in mind, if you're over 65, inheritance can cause a number of stealth taxes. It can cause your tax bracket to not only go up, but you may be paying more tax on Social Security. And in some cases, if you're already on Medicare, you may be facing higher Medicare premiums because of the inheritance as well. Again, right, these are all good problems. When you're inheriting money, it's a windfall, but we don't want you to be blindsided by things, okay? This next video talks more about ways to slash your taxes. Click on it now.